The room fell silent the moment he spoke. "Give me the one no one wanted." Dozens of women stood in a neat, trembling line inside the dusty town hall, their gloved hands clutching small satchels, their hopeful eyes fixed on the men who had come to choose wives. Some smiled nervously. Some stared at the floor. A few whispered quiet prayers. And then there was her. She stood at the far end, half hidden behind a wooden pillar, as though she wished the world might forget she existed. Her dress was plain and slightly worn, her shoulders drawn inward, her eyes lowered, not out of modesty, but habit. No one had stepped toward her. Not once. Until now. The cowboy who had spoken stood tall near the front, broad-shouldered, dust-covered, and quiet in a way that made people uneasy. His name was Caleb Hayes, a rancher known across the county not for kindness but for distance. He kept to himself, spoke little, trusted even less. And yet, in a room full of bright smiles and eager hearts, he had chosen her. The woman no one wanted. The organizer cleared his throat. "Mr. Hayes, are you certain? There are many other options." "I said what I meant," Caleb replied, his voice steady but firm. Her. Every eye in the room turned. The woman flinched, as if the sudden attention might burn her. Slowly, uncertainly, she looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. Then Caleb stepped forward. Her name was Eliza Carter. She spoke it so softly he almost didn't hear it. They signed the papers that afternoon. No celebration, no music, no grand beginning. Just ink on paper and a quiet understanding that two strangers would now share a life. As they stepped outside, the late sun painted the town in gold. Caleb walked ahead, leading his horse, while Eliza followed a few paces behind, clutching her bag. "You can ride," he said without looking back. She hesitated. I can walk. It's a long road," he replied. "You'll ride." There was no harshness in his voice. Just certainty. After a moment, she nodded. The journey to the ranch took nearly a day. They spoke little. Caleb wasn't unkind, but he wasn't warm either. He answered her questions briefly, offered food when they stopped, and made sure she stayed close. But there was a wall around him, one she could feel but not see. Eliza didn't try to break it. She had learned long ago that some doors were better left closed. The ranch stood at the edge of a wide, open valley, framed by distant hills and endless sky. It wasn't grand, but it was solid, built by hands that valued strength over beauty. "This is it," Caleb said simply. Eliza stepped down from the horse, her boots touching the dry earth. "It's nice," she said, though she wasn't sure what else to say. Caleb nodded once. "You'll have your own room." He paused, then added, almost awkwardly, "You'll be safe here." Something in his tone made her glance up. Safe. It wasn't a word she heard often. The first weeks passed in quiet routine. Eliza woke early, helping with chores, cooking meals, mending clothes. She worked harder than Caleb expected, never complaining, never asking for more than what she needed. At first, he watched her from a distance. He had chosen her for a reason. Not out of pity, as the others might think. But because he had seen something in her eyes. Not weakness. Survival. Eliza, for her part, struggled with the silence. Not the absence of noise, but the absence of judgment. No sharp words. No cruel looks. No one reminding her of her past. It felt unfamiliar. Unsettling, even. One evening, as she washed dishes by the window, she finally spoke. "Why did you choose me?" Caleb, sitting at the table, looked up. "I told you," he said. "I chose the one no one else did." "That's not a reason," she replied quietly. He studied her for a moment. "You didn't look at the floor the same way the others did," he said. She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "They looked down because they were nervous," he explained. "You looked down because you were used to being overlooked." Eliza's hands stilled. "And I don't like crowds," he added. "Or pretending." She let out a small, almost humorless breath. "So you picked the least complicated option." "No," he said, his voice firm. "I picked the most honest one." For the first time, she didn't know how to respond. But the past doesn't stay buried forever. It came one afternoon in the form of a rider. Eliza saw him first, a man approaching fast, his coat flapping in the wind, his posture rigid with purpose. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. Caleb noticed her reaction immediately. "You know him." She stepped back, her face draining of color. I need to go inside." Eliza. But she was already moving. The rider dismounted with heavy steps, his eyes scanning the ranch until they landed on Caleb. "Where is she?" the man demanded. Caleb's expression hardened. "You'll need to be more specific." "Eliza Carter," the man snapped. "She's my responsibility." Caleb folded his arms. "She's my wife." The man laughed bitterly. "Your mistake." Something in his tone made Caleb's jaw tighten. "State your business." "I'm here to take her back," the man said. "On what grounds?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "She ran from a contract. She owes money. And I intend to collect." Inside the house, Eliza pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs. He had found her. She knew he would. People like him always did. Outside, Caleb didn't move. "She's not going anywhere," he said. The man smirked. "You don't understand. She belongs to herself." Caleb cut in, his voice low but dangerous. The air shifted. The man's smile faded. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. And you're trespassing," Caleb replied. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then the man exhaled sharply. "This isn't over." He turned, mounted his horse, and rode off in a cloud of dust. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring into the dark. Caleb found her there. "He won't come back tonight," he said. She didn't look at him. "You don't know that. I know men like him," Caleb replied. She wrapped her arms around herself. "Then you know he won't stop." Silence stretched between them. Finally, she spoke again. "I didn't tell you everything." "I figured," Caleb said. She swallowed hard. "I was sold to pay a debt that wasn't mine. I worked for years, trying to pay it off, but they kept adding more. Interest, fees, things I didn't understand." Her voice trembled. "I ran because I realized I'd never be free." Caleb listened, his expression unreadable. "He'll come back," she said. "And next time, he won't ask." Caleb stepped closer. "Then next time," he said quietly, "he'll deal with me." True to her fear, the man returned. But he didn't come alone. 3 riders this time, armed. Eliza saw them from the porch, her breath catching. Inside, Caleb said, already reaching for his rifle. "No," she said, surprising even herself. He glanced at her. "I'm not hiding," she continued. "Not anymore." For a moment, he studied her. Then he nodded. "Stay close." The confrontation was swift and tense. The men demanded payment. Caleb refused. Words turned to threats. Threats turned to violence. But Caleb wasn't just a rancher. He was a man who had survived his own battles, ones he never spoke about. The fight ended quickly. The men, outmatched and outmaneuvered, fled once more. And this time, they didn't look back. In the quiet that followed, Eliza stood trembling, her hands clenched at her sides. "It's over," Caleb said. She looked at him, tears filling her eyes. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you risk everything for me?" He hesitated. Then, slowly, he answered. "Because I know what it's like to be treated like you don't matter," he said. "And I decided a long time ago that if I ever had the chance to change that for someone else, I would." Her breath caught. "And because," he added, softer now, "you matter. Whether you believe it or not." The words broke something inside her. Not in a painful way. In a healing one. Seasons changed. The ranch grew. And so did something neither of them had expected. Trust. It came in small moments. Shared meals. Quiet laughter. The way Caleb began to linger a little longer in the doorway. The way Eliza's shoulders slowly straightened, her voice growing steadier, her eyes brighter. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, they sat side by side on the porch. "You know," Eliza said softly, "I used to think being unwanted meant I had no value." Caleb glanced at her. "And now," she smiled, a real smile this time. "Now I think it just means I hadn't met the right person yet." He didn't reply. But the look in his eyes said everything. The town would later tell their story in different ways. Some said the cowboy had saved the girl. Others said the girl had saved the cowboy. But the truth was simpler. 2 people, both overlooked in their own ways, had found something rare. Not perfection. Not a fairy tale. But something stronger. A choice. To see each other. To stand by each other. To believe, despite everything, that they were worth more than the world had once told them. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life.